Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask a Clutter Boss, the internet's best decluttering advice show. I am your host this week. I'm Gina Ledwith, co-owner of Clutter Boss. Jess Marcy is your typical host, and I'm glad to be here. So, good morning, Mary. If you're here, let me know. Say hello. Um, where you're from, if you'd like to share anything at all. I can see the comments, so feel free to interact with me while you're here. I'm going to go through, we have some great questions this week. Hi, Nina. And after that, if you all had any questions, I can circle back and answer those. So I'm going to get started right away because we have several good ones. The first one is I feel like every room in my house has a junk drawer. Hi, Linda. Is this normal? Any tips to undo this? So, gosh, we all can relate to junk drawers, right? And I can't say that it's never been heard of to have them in multiple rooms. The thing about it is that when we talk about decluttering, and of course, this is a process, everything should have a home, right? So, if that junk drawer, for instance, contains things that you have designated as that is the space for them, you know where to go for them. And for example, like I'll say, I have a drawer in my kitchen that would be considered the junk drawer. There are pens, pencils, but there are also matches, um, some paper clips, there's a couple screwdrivers, things like that, right? So things that maybe I use regularly, but don't want to go necessarily down in the basement or into my office or whatever the case may be. So, as much as it's not necessarily a case of is it normal or not, it's is it functional, right? So, the junk drawers should be decluttered and should be functional, and things in there should be intentional. So, if you have things in a particular room that you use often, but maybe they're part of a bigger collection that it belongs somewhere, that you have stored somewhere else in your house, it's totally fine to keep some of those things in a drawer in another room or, a bin or a space or whatever the case may be. The important thing is that you've designated it as the home. It's functional, it's not overwhelming, it's not stressful, it's organized. You know exactly what's in there, and it works for you, right? If it's working and it's organized and you know exactly where to go to find the items in that drawer, then it's totally okay. If, however, this is not the case, then of course, um, figuring out a different strategy, maybe putting things that you don't really use that often that could go in the home with others. So, like, let's say tools, for example. If you're not accessing those and it's no big deal to go get them wherever else they are stored, then those should be stored together. But I hope this helps. I hope you're getting my point. Um, that it is okay. I mean, it's your decision how you store your things, but have them be decluttered and functional and not overwhelming or stressful and saving you time, really, right? So you're not looking for these things all over the place, and it's a decision you made to store them that specific way. I hope that makes sense and is helpful. Before I move on to the next question, let's see what we've got here. Hello, Linda, Susan, Denise, Elena, Lax. No, sorry. Dee Dee. Trish, Karen, good morning. Carrie, good to have you all here. So, again, if anybody joined me late while I was still talking, if you have any questions that you'd like to put into the comments, feel free. And I'll circle back to those in between or after all the other questions for today. Moving on to the next one. So this person is new to the group and is recently joined because she needs new ideas to help keep clutter at bay because it affects her mental health. Dealing with chronic illnesses, I'm looking for ways to simplify my laundry and kitchen tasks. So to me, when I think about this, I think about systems. And I think it all comes down to a system that's working. And you'll know it's working if it's alleviating your overwhelm, your stress, and it's manageable for you. So for instance, a system in the kitchen might be that your sink is clear every night. how do we get there, right? A system to keep your sink or have your sink clear every night. So we wash our dishes as soon as we use them, or after we cook, or after a meal, or whatever whatever you decide is that parameter. But having a system in place that there's specific steps. This is exactly what I'm going to do to keep my dishes manageable, right? To keep my laundry manageable. So for some, laundry every day makes sense. For some, every other day. For some, every third day. It really depends on what makes sense for you. And the key is that it's no longer overwhelming or stressful. So, kind of backtracking to what's the first step in order to have the system that works. So, again, I'm going to go back to the kitchen, right? So, dishes are usually the biggest obstacle in the kitchen or for keeping the kitchen clean. So, having a system for keeping your sink empty and clean would be the goal. And how do we get there? So, again, washing dishes after a meal, or if you're living alone, then you're washing them yourself each time you use them, or you're saying, twice a day I'm going to clear the sink, or before I go to bed I'm going to make sure that sink is clean. Whatever you decide that parameter is, it's having a system of getting there. So if your goal is, as per your question, simplifying dishes and laundry, think of small tasks that will make it manageable and easy to keep up with. So if doing laundry every week seems overwhelming and you don't want to do it, and it's not simple because you have to do more than one load, then we want to maybe do it twice a week or more often. So it's really a matter of coming up with ways to simplify the process for yourself. And for everybody, that's different, right? So it depends on how many people there are, or how many times a day you're changing your clothes, or how many times a day you're eating for the dishes. So some of those variables will be something obviously you would need to take a look at and decide. But that system that you're going to create is the key to managing dishes and laundry and truly any other area in your home. So I hope that helps. And always, we can talk more about any of these questions if the answers aren't as clear or as thorough and we need some more detail. Just please always let us know. All right, moving on to the next one. My daughter thinks that the entire living room is her personal junk drawer. I've given up on the 24/7 constant battle with her. I just keep throwing her junk in boxes and stacking them in the other rooms. She's an adult and I don't know what else to do. It's very stressful. So this is tricky, right? So there are different answers to this based on the age of the child, I would say. I think living with other people who don't hold your same standards as far as decluttering and picking up and keeping tidy is a true struggle, right? So I kind of love that you're putting her stuff in bins or boxes and getting it out of sight. However, I feel strongly that she should be contributing here. And so maybe it goes back to communication. Maybe it's instead of the battle, which just because I can relate and I understand the naggy communication that can happen when you get super frustrated with things in your home. But communication of this would really help me if XYZ, or, maybe is there a way that every night before you go to bed or before you leave for work or before whatever, that you can make sure this room is picked up? The negativity and the stress around communication can really hinder the willingness of people to help out. Certainly adult children understand this concept, right? So it's not where you have to communicate why we want to pick up or why this, but maybe expressing your needs and how it's impacting you might really help here. Of course, you can only do you, right? You can't declutter other people's things. And I don't think you should have to clean up after other people, especially adults living in your home. So communication around this, I think, is critical. And this is one where I would love to talk more to see what maybe you've tried and how it's gone each time, because I'm guessing it's a very similar thing each time where your frustration is what's coming out in the communication, which I totally understand. And it's not received well, right? And so, for whatever reason. So, to me, the communication around this and maybe, approaching it in a different way could help. I'm hoping that in your situation, that's a tip that you feel is something you haven't tried. Again, if you want to talk further, by all means, post some more or email us and we can talk more about this. I wish you luck because I understand how difficult it can be to deal with other people in the home that, like I said, aren't of the same habits and mindsets as you around all this stuff. So it can be really tough. So try the communication piece. Let her know that it's nothing, you're not like, you're just trying to have a peaceful home and space. And as somebody who's living in your home, right, that you would love her um, cooperation in keeping the space a certain way. I think it's really important to keep the communication on ourselves rather than blaming or, pointing out what's being done wrong, that kind of thing, which can be really challenging, really, really challenging. So good luck with that and let us know how it goes or communicate further if we can talk through that a little bit more. Okay, next one is, okay, how can I improve my time management and overcome the challenge of getting started with decluttering? So, I'm going to share what really helped me in the beginning when I didn't know where to start. There was so much to do, and the overwhelm was at a really all time high, right? The 5 minute rule, what we call the 5 minute rule. If it takes 5 minutes or less, just do it. And in terms of decluttering, I think that's a great maintenance strategy. But in terms of decluttering, the way I kind of translated that is use all your time. Like if you have 5 minutes, you're getting ready to head out the door, and you have 5 minutes before you really need to leave, use that 5 minutes to do something. You will be shocked how much you can get done in that short amount of time. So, for instance, you could, maybe there's some mail, you can just grab a few and decide, what you need to do with them. You can pick up things maybe on the floor. Maybe there's some trash that hasn't been put in the correct place. Maybe the dishwasher hasn't been emptied. No matter what it is, even if it's a task you can't complete, those 5 minutes add up. And so I would try to get in the habit of using these small pockets of time to get the momentum going. I think time management can be something that we try to spend so much time making the perfect schedule for, and not always necessary. If you have non negotiables, such as a job that you report to or go to each day, then you're going to need to look at the time that you're home. What other things need to happen in there, and how much time do you really have? It doesn't have to be a lot of time. It truly can be those 5 minutes pockets of time that not only get you started, but can really build momentum so that you start to feel like things are happening. Um, I think that's really important to remember that, we all, I think, at some point are guilty of saying, I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time. And that could very well be true, that your time is well taken up with other things that are non-negotiable. But those 5 minute pockets, we don't usually identify those as usable time. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, we'll sit and say, oh, I have 5 minutes. And then we'll just mindlessly scroll and not really do anything that's of benefit to us. So, wasting time in that sense, where we're not accomplishing something of value to our well being. You definitely want to start with easy, non emotional stuff. So, when you're first starting out, or when you get to a point where, at any point, if you maybe haven't been decluttering for a while, you're coming back to it, you always want to look at what's easy. What can I do here that's easy? Trash, broken items, torn clothing, things that you don't use, things that, maybe just because they've become part of the landscape, you've left them somewhere, like a pile of books, or I don't know, whatever the case may be. And you want it to be easy. And I'm just using these as examples. Books can be really hard for some people. So just saying that, whatever seems easy to you, like an easy decision, those are the things you should start with. And then you just have to start. You just have to commit that today, tomorrow, 2 minutes from now, whatever, whenever that's going to be, make the commitment. Use our group. The It's All Clutter group is a great place for you to go in and post, hey, here's where I'm at. I'm committing to starting today or tomorrow, or I'm committing to 5 minutes tonight when I get home from work, whatever the case may be. And we will definitely be cheering you on. You'll get plenty of support from the community. But I think that we just need to take a look at where our time is going. Sometimes we don't even really know that. And then decide we're going to use those little pockets of time in a way that will benefit the goals we're trying to accomplish. And maybe it's making sure every day we're doing at least something, something to bring us further to the end goal. And if it's a big project you're working on, try not to look at the big project. Whether you're starting to declutter or you're starting on a particular room, looking at the whole picture can be really overwhelming, and it does prevent you from taking action potentially. Whereas if you looked at just like, okay, this surface over here, or one drawer, or one corner, it does get easier as time goes on. So making those small commitments does snowball and build momentum, and you're strengthening your decision-making muscle. If you haven't heard us say that already, we're always saying that. You're practicing, you're getting better and better every time you do this. So making it a habit to do that is a really great way to create some good forward momentum. But truly just make it a small task that doesn't seem so overwhelming to you, and use those small pockets of time so that your time doesn't seem to be used up with other things. If we take a really hard look at our time, I know this is true for me. There is time that we're, just sitting or mindlessly scrolling, or, maybe we can multitask. Maybe we can do things while listening to TV or whatever the case may be. It's a process, and figuring out the whole big picture at once is not necessary, but figuring out how we can take those small steps is really, really important. So I hope that helps. Next question is, how can I maintain the energy to declutter after work when I often come home exhausted and fall asleep, even missing dinner? So this is a tough one. And of course, again, a little bit of time management here is important. Some of the same strategies I just mentioned. But I think what pops into my mind as really key here is having a system that works for when you get home from work. And one of the keys here, I believe, is doing something before you let yourself sit down. And when I say that, I mean sit down to relax, because by then you're asking of yourself to fight against this relaxation that of course you deserve after a hard day of work. Of course you're exhausted, but if there's something small that you can do each day you come home, before you do that, dinner would be a great one, and planning around that could be something that you could put some time into, having simple, easy things that you could eat when you get home. But in addition to that, whatever the project is that you are trying to accomplish, and decluttering a home or a room or a closet or whatever the case may be, doing something before you get to that relaxation spot would be my number one suggestion, because even if it's 5 minutes, it's more than you were doing, and you're creating habits and you're starting a system, and you will hopefully from that build, because action really is the motivation. Motivation doesn't just come on its own very easily. But if you take action, and again, it could be that 5 minute, it doesn't have to be anything big, but if you do it consistently, that's where motivation starts to build. So I think this actually could apply to a lot of the questions asked today. And sleep would be the other thing, getting into a good sleep routine so that you, at least, even if you're exhausted from work, that you are giving your body the rest it needs, and could potentially increase the amount of energy you have overall. But that doing one thing, and something easy, this doesn't have to be difficult, it doesn't have to be long, when you first get in the door, because I've heard time and time again with people in this situation, once they sit down, and I get it, trust me, it's harder to get up out of the chair and do it than it would have been to just do it as part of your routine once you walk in the door. So whether you're going to get changed, you're going to kick off your shoes, whatever the things you already do, add on to that something else that you want to be doing in small increments. I hope that makes sense and helps you. And one last question, and I don't think, I'm just going to be sure so this doesn't get too far ahead. The chat, I don't see any comments with other questions. So this will be our last question. My biggest struggle with decluttering is finding time to declutter. How can I effectively find time for decluttering when I prefer dedicating an entire day to see results, but feel unaccomplished with just 30 minutes a day? So a lot of what I've said already applies here too, but I think the big thing for me that pops into my mind when I read this is expectations. You need to give yourself credit for every piece of action you take, every step, every minute, every 5-minute chunk, whatever the case may be. And if your expectations are consistent action, then you won't be disappointed. You won't feel unaccomplished because you're not always going to have a full 30 minutes. A full 30 minutes may sometimes not even show true progress. You have to align with the expectation that your action is what is your accomplishment. As long as you know you're taking consistent action, that right there means you are making progress. But we don't always own that, or it's hard to wrap our head around that and say, oh, I just spent 30 minutes and no matter what it looks like afterwards, no matter how much I got out, I made progress and this is a huge accomplishment. So temporary chaos is a real thing. We talk about it all the time. Things get worse before they get better in a lot and most cases, right? So as you're going through things, you're sorting, you can't always make a decision about the thing in your hand right away. So let's just say you're in a bedroom and you're decluttering your closet. You may not make a decision on a piece of clothing the minute you touch it. You might have to put it aside. You could sort by keep, donate, I guess keep and donate, right? And the ones you're keeping though, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to hang it? Are you going to put it in a drawer? You may have to go back for another cycle, another round of decluttering that same closet. So lowering your expectations in a positive way, in a way that supports you taking credit and giving yourself, congratulate yourself for all those small segments of action because they add up. So when we look at a room and say, oh, I'm not going to feel accomplished until this room is done, and I just want to spend the whole day doing it and it will be done, 9 times out of 10, maybe more, that is not going to happen. You're not taking into consideration how many decisions you have to make, how long it'll take you to make those decisions, things you might uncover while you're decluttering that you didn't expect. Things might happen in your life that pull you away from the room. So you never want to set yourself up with a plan that is so unrealistic that the likelihood of you being able to see it to completion because of other things, not you, not that you're not capable, but if it's unrealistic, then chances are you're not going to feel accomplished. So lowering your expectations, taking on smaller tasks, feeling the accomplishment in every action you take, because that consistent action is absolutely what will get you to the end, to the finish line. We all do this. This is such a common thing. And I want to say that for a lot of these questions, they're very similar to questions we've heard before. So none of this is your fault. None of this is because you can't figure it out. It takes time. It takes skill. And I think that we just have to keep reminding ourselves of that. We're doing it. We're showing up. We're asking the questions. So continue to celebrate all those little wins. And I promise that will go a long way in making you feel more accomplished in these situations. It's just a matter of kind of like what we've always believed or how we've always felt, and how can we maybe look at this differently that supports us better. You deserve to feel accomplished for the work you're doing, of course. So why not shift our mindset a little bit to make that possible? That's all the questions we have for today. I hope that was helpful, even for those of you that are listening who didn't submit a question. I think these are all good reminders for anybody who's been doing this for a long time. I know they are for me, just thinking these things through are really, really good. So any questions or comments that you want to share, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, I'll just give it a minute or so here. Otherwise, we will end. And if you have any questions for next week, you should have gotten an email. There is a link that you can submit. Sorry, my dog is choosing to join us. You can submit there, or you can post into the group. Hopefully you're all part of the It's All Clutter Facebook group. And the other thing I want to say is you'll see information soon, but we just finished an amazing boot camp week, which we're all still so excited about. If you have not participated ever in a boot camp, or you want a refresher, our next one will be August 19th. That week, you can sign up at clutterboss.com/clutter-bootcamp. Any questions ever at all, please feel free to email us at support@clutterboss.com, or post into our Facebook group or anything like that. All right, Dee Dee, let's see what you're saying. I have a garage full of cartons and it's so overwhelming. 100%, right? When the volume of things that we have in any given space can be extremely overwhelming. And I think it seems like a common thread today is breaking it down into smaller chunks so that particular task then doesn't seem as overwhelming. If there are cartons, take one carton. And another idea is, if you can, bring that carton into your house so you're working on that carton in a space that's not the overwhelming garage. Does that make sense? So if you have, let's just say you have 10 boxes or cartons, taking one at a time, going inside and sorting. I work and also have to deal with today things when I get home and on my days off. Right. There's always going to be maintenance and daily things that we have to do. So you need to identify what amount of time really is manageable to give to that garage. It will happen, hands down. It will happen with consistent action. It won't happen with consistent pressure and overwhelm that, oh, it's so much, I can't do it, I don't have time. Take 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be. Again, this is not about putting in the entire day to complete your garage. It does not have to be that way. Small chunks, smaller focus. It's all a part of the big puzzle, right? Just think of it as one puzzle piece, and you're taking it one piece at a time. And when I say consistent, I don't mean every day it has to look the same. Some tasks and systems do require that, but others don't. If you're decluttering a garage and you say, oh, I'm just going to take one box at a time, and it takes you the whole week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do that one box, as long as you're consistently going through, let's just say it's a box of paper, you grab a pile or like a handful every other day, that's consistency, right? It's just a matter of doing it on a regular basis in small chunks. So I hope that helps. And I love that you are in this community, and I encourage you to use the It's All Clutter group or whatever other groups you're a part of to talk about these things and post. If you are interested in any of our programs, you can always go check them out at clutterboss.com. And again, support@clutterboss.com is a great email to reach us if you have any questions outside of this series. And I thank you all for your questions. I thank those of you who are here for being here. We have a great audience today, so thank you so much. I wish you an amazing week, and keep on keeping on, and give yourself credit for every step you take towards that finish line. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing week. Bye for now.